Trump campaign is now reaching voters online.
You are seeing the President of the United States. Look at the lines.
You join our movement.
A lot of President Trump supporters here.
Greatest movement in the history of our country.
President Trump stood up early on and said, let's stop the travel, save a lot of American lives.
Coronavirus outbreak has only further exposed Joe Biden's weak leadership towards a communist nation.
Because of the system we have, we've been able to ramp up and fight this virus, but that would not be there if Joe Biden were president, because he'd create Medicare for all and destroy the research and innovation that we needed in this time, in this place.
How refreshing to have a president who said, this is what I said I was going to do, so I'm going to do it.
We need to fight back. We will fight back.
We have an opportunity to fight for our freedom.
And I can tell you the president was focused, laser focused on pressing back on China.
We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. We will make America great again.
Welcome to Team Trump Online.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Team Trump Online. I'm Lara Trump, Senior Advisor to President Trump's re-election campaign. Joining me to kick off tonight's show is one of the leading voices in Congress, Senator Tom Tillis from my home state of North Carolina. Senator Tillis, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right, we have a great show, so let's go ahead and get started. Over the past couple of months, President Trump has taken bold action to tackle the coronavirus outbreak. The Trump administration also closely partnered with federal, state, and local governments and the private sector to combat coronavirus and safely reopen the economy. Senator Tillis, you're working directly with President Trump to protect the health of the American people and safeguard our economy during this unprecedented time. Can you describe how the federal and local governments are working together to provide relief to the citizens of North Carolina?
Well, absolutely. I first have to say this is not the president's first effort to help North Carolina. When I called him up within an hour, he declared an emergency declaration with one of our last hurricanes to make sure we were prepared for it, and it made a difference. Now that we've had COVID come after us, he's been with us every step of the way as we passed the first relief bill, the $8 billion that immediately went out, then the CARES Act, and now almost $3 trillion in support going down to help hospitals, to help state and local governments. The president has made sure that the national stockpile got surged to the areas that were needing it the most: personal protective equipment, testing, ventilators. He has literally taken every step, bold steps, I might add. When he was roundly criticized for shutting down China travel, that was a good decision. It was a decision that bought us critical weeks. If only China had acted the way our president did to protect public health, we'd be a lot better off right now.
Yeah, that's for sure. I don't think we'll ever know, Senator Tillis, how many lives ultimately were saved, American lives, from the president's move doing that. But thank God he did it. I mean, countless lives saved. I love this story. It's so exciting. A few weeks ago, a company from my hometown, Wilmington, North Carolina, was invited to the White House. And I think so many people all across the country were touched by their really inspiring story. Senator Tillis, can you tell the folks at home, I'm very familiar with this place, Biddy and Bo, because a good friend of mine actually works there. Talk about their story and why it's a great example of the work that you and President Trump have done to get the economy reopened.
Well, the owners, the originators of Biddy and Bo's, have two children who have intellectual developmental disabilities, and they knew firsthand how many are out of work. As many as 80% of the people who have intellectual or developmental disabilities can't find a job. So they had this great idea of building a coffee shop and allowing people to come in and work. They had dozens of employees that they had to lay off. I met them first back in 2018. I've been there a couple of times. Boy, it'll recharge your battery when you go in there.
Yep.
A lot of joy. But they ended up applying for the Paycheck Protection Program, and it got those young men and women back to work. It's an extraordinary story, and there are thousands of those stories in North Carolina. Over $8 billion to 40,000 different businesses, helping them stay in business as we combat the virus. It's a wonderful story, and anybody that goes to the Wilmington area would be happy that they went there.
Yeah, I would recommend everybody go check them out. They do a great job, and you're not only recharged by the coffee, but the atmosphere in the place too. It's really amazing. I want to shift for a second and talk about the country responsible for the pandemic affecting the entire world, Communist China. You recently released an 18-point plan to hold the Chinese government accountable. On the other hand, Joe Biden and the Democrats are doing nothing to stop China. Could you talk about your plan to address China's deception and lack of transparency on coronavirus, and why are Joe Biden and the Democrats seemingly turning a blind eye?
Laura, there was a report that said if China just acted 3 weeks sooner, that 95% of the deaths that we're experiencing with COVID could have been avoided. China lied to us. They destroyed test kits. They lied to their own people. And I always try to make the point that this is not about the Chinese people. This is about the deceptive Communist Party leaders that are responsible for thousands of deaths, hundreds of thousands of deaths across the United States because they refused to provide the lab information they had, the gene sequencing on the virus, things that are critically important for us to be able to fight the virus. They have to be held accountable on every front. First, I've asked the president to investigate China, the World Health Organization. We've got to get to the bottom of exactly where the virus came from. And then we've got to think about things differently going forward. We have got to bring jobs back and manufacturing that right now we can be held hostage by China. They have to be held accountable. They need to be held accountable. Their leaders, I think, should be subject to sanctions, those who willfully misled us. And all of those things are a part of our 18-point plan. And there's growing sentiment, but you're absolutely right. Not only do the Democrats seem to want to cast a blind eye towards China's culpability, but they almost defend them. That is not what the American people want in a leader, and that's why Joe Biden is going to be beaten soundly by Donald Trump in November.
Well, we know, Senator Tillis, that Joe Biden has supported Communist China for years, really allowing China to become an economic power. Biden has ignored China's unfair trade practices that have devastated American workers and factories. Can you talk about the contrast between President Trump and Joe Biden on dealing with China regarding the issue of trade and how it's impacted jobs, specifically in the state of North Carolina?
Well, if you remember, this is not a new thing for President Trump either. And when he first ran in 2016, he said he was going to be tough on China, and he has been. He was criticized for the moves that he made on trade, and it got us to phase one deal with China. He has criticized other leaders like Barack Obama and Joe Biden who were allowing jobs just to move over there, letting them build their economies, and they're using that economy to build their military might against the United States. We saw Joe Biden when he was in office allowing the South China Sea to be taken over by China. Every step of the way, Joe Biden and the Democrats have turned a blind eye to the greatest economic and military threat that this country has ever seen. President Trump recognizes that farmers are suffering in North Carolina, textile manufacturers, even the pharmaceutical companies in North Carolina. He recognizes that a tough on China strategy is good for American jobs and it's good for American national security.
Yeah, he's also been calling China out really since I've known him for decades now. Donald Trump has said somebody needs to do something about China. But as we head towards November, I think it becomes more evident every single day why we need to reelect Donald Trump. But the president also needs his allies in the Senate to help fulfill his America First agenda. So why is it critical that we keep a Senate majority come this November?
Because all the good work that's been done under President Trump with the congressional, remember when we had the House and the Senate, think about all the things we did. And my goodness, think about how much worse off we would be combating this virus if we didn't have the vibrant economy that came through the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that the president signed and helped us get through Congress. Cutting regulations. If we lose the White House and we lose the Senate, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and Joe Biden will raise your taxes. They will regulate businesses out of business. They will turn a blind eye towards China's malign actions, and this country will be forever changed. That's why I'm fighting hard. In North Carolina, Laura, I know you know North Carolina well. It's going to be a battleground state for me and the president, and I'm going to work every single day to get us both reelected.
Yeah, you actually are up for re-election this November. And Senator Tillis, your opponent is part of the party of socialism, job-killing policies that would absolutely destroy our economy, and the party of the radical un-American squad. What message would you like to send to the people of North Carolina as we head towards November?
That they couldn't have a starker contrast between two candidates for the U.S. Senate. My opponent has fully embraced Nancy Pelosi. He's embraced her first proposal, the Green New Deal, being baked into a COVID response, really. My opponent has a very different perspective. He's a trial lawyer that's lived fairly well. I grew up in trailer parks and rental houses. I work every day for people who are struggling to make ends meet because I've been there. And we need somebody who does that every single day, working for the man and woman and business that's just barely making payroll, just barely making ends meet. The way that he's embraced Nancy Pelosi's, Cal Cunningham is his name, the way he's embraced their policies is an embrace of destroying the economic opportunities and the freedom that I had that took me out of that trailer park and ultimately made me a partner at IBM. I want that potential for the American dream to be realized by everybody who's struggling today. And even more so now that we've got 1 million people out of work in North Carolina. My job is fighting for their job, and I'm going to continue to do it as long as I'm a U.S. Senator.
Well, we know you are a great supporter of this president. We want to say thank you, Senator Tillis, for your great support for the president, for the state of North Carolina, and for the country. And thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you. God bless, and greetings from the Tar Heel State.
All right. Thank you so much. Everybody stay right where you are. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this with more Team Trump Online.
In 2016, we built an unbeatable operation that changed history. Now, we unveil our next breakthrough. The exclusive Trump 2020 app. This isn't just an app. This is your source for real news, not fake news. Straight from the campaign and the president himself. This is your direct line to give input on key campaign issues. Your portal to register voters. Host MAGA meetups. Your scheduler. Your application on becoming a Trump team leader. Join millions and get a front row seat to our virtual events. Watch Team Trump every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Earn points, get rewarded. Get the presidential photo. Oh, and did we mention it? This is your personal shopper too? So just to repeat, this isn't just an app. This is your tool to keep America great. Join the army for Trump and download the app today.
During the coronavirus pandemic, Joe Biden criticized President Trump's China travel ban.
Hysterical xenophobia.
He was dead wrong. For 40 years, Biden's been wrong on China, supporting trade deals that destroy American jobs, giving China most favored nation status, letting China walk all over us.
The beautiful history we wrote together.
But Biden has never been more wrong than now. Joe Biden in the White House would be a deadly mistake.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to Team Trump Online. I'm Lara Trump. We just heard from Senator Tom Tillis about how President Trump and the Republicans in Senate are working tirelessly to ensure the health and safety of the American people. Now it's time to bring in two members of the House of Representatives, Congressman Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania and Congresswoman Debbie Lesko from Arizona. Thank you both so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on, Lara.
Absolutely. All right. So in March, President Trump signed the historic $2.2 trillion CARES Act. This legislation provided direct economic relief to American families, workers, and businesses affected by the coronavirus outbreak. Congressman Kelly and Congresswoman Lesko, how much of an impact has the economic relief plan made in your states of Pennsylvania and Arizona? Congressman Kelly, I'll start with you.
Well, you know, so many of the people that were affected through no fault of their own, as we know, it wasn't a blunder that anybody made in the business plan. we got hit with this pandemic. I think that the support that came from this administration very quickly, the president jumping on board with this and talking about what we were going to do to help people who, through no fault of their own, were going to be placed on the sideline. It's been a tremendous boom. The offices now, and I'm sure Deb's the same way, we work from our homes, but we handle somewhere in 300 to 400 calls in a daytime trying to get people onto the programs, get them set up so that they can get through the Paycheck Protection Plan and the small business loans. That's the only thing that's keeping them alive. It's the only thing that's giving them the bright ray of hope during a time of the darkest days that we've seen in a couple of turns here. So when you look at that and you say, well, what's the difference then? What's the difference? Strong leadership from this president, jumping on right away. Now, no other person could have done this, by the way. When you look at who ran for president in the past, they were all politicians. Now, I have nothing against politicians. Deb and I are both in that position right now, but I'm a private business person also. So I have watched for years private business people survive in times that other people could not have, and politicians who didn't have any clue about how to run a business and got us to a position that we really were weakened, especially with some of our trade policy. This president, and only this president, Donald Trump, called it out early on. China is our #1 concern. This is who we have to look to. And hey, look, not blaming them for taking advantage of weak administrations before. But you know what? The buck stops here. It stops at my desk, and the bucks start going into the pockets of our hardworking American taxpayers and our business leaders. So nothing could be stronger in Western Pennsylvania than Donald Trump. Nothing could be stronger in Western Pennsylvania than his leadership during some very, very difficult times. That leads me to believe, and the people that I represent, that there are brighter days ahead, and we'll get back to making America great again. We were on such a super trail. We were down to below 4% unemployment. And really what that means is only those who didn't want to be employed were unemployed.
Right.
So when you look at what happened, and we can go on and on, fossil fuels, this is Western Pennsylvania where I am, the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. More jobs, lower energy costs, and we were leading. We were doing so well. This thing came along, knocked us off our horse. We're getting back on it. But I think Deb has the same story where she's from. I can't imagine the United States, the situation we're in today, with anybody other than Donald Trump being in the lead. There's nobody else. All those people that ran before, whenever he was one of just a nominee, or when he was a candidate, he made all the rest of those people look on the stage look like they didn't know what tomorrow was supposed to look like and what America is. So on board early, got a chance to meet him several times, and every place I went with him, I'm a graduate of Notre Dame. His rallies made the Notre Dame pep rallies look quiet. And that never happens. When they start chanting, "Here come the Irish," well, I say now, here comes Trump. So
I love it.
We got to get back to work, though.
Yeah, we're working on it. And Congresswoman Lesko, how are things in Arizona?
Things are doing well in Arizona, and 44,000 small businesses in Arizona were able to apply and get the PPP loan grant program.
Wow.
And so I just talked to one of them yesterday, quite frankly. I finally got in to get my hair done because we're open back up here in Arizona.
I'm so jealous. Yeah. I haven't. I'll live through you.
Awesome. It was awesome. And the salon owner, Maria, who happens to have immigrated from Romania, she's a huge Trump supporter. She got the loan, and it saved her, it helped her. But not only her, but the individual hairstylist, like the lady that does my hair, and she pays rent to Maria for her spot at the beauty salon. She was able to get programs to help her too. And then she spread the word because she's the one that contacted me, and she said, "Hey, Debbie, the government shut me down. I need some help." But then in addition to that, on the plane last week, I was flying to Washington, D.C. to vote for that awful Pelosi bill. And I met a constituent on the plane ride. I didn't know her in advance, but she knew me. And when we got off the plane, her name is Carmen, and she works in the hotel industry, and they've just been devastated. Her company does staffing for the hotel industry. And when I saw her again, I flew back again Saturday morning, and she was on the plane again. And we got to talking, and she's like, people don't think that Black Americans support President Trump, but I support President Trump. and a lot of Black support President Trump. And so, you know, there's people all over Arizona and all over this country that can see clearly the difference between Republican policies, what President Trump wants to do, and what a lot of my Democrat colleagues want to do. It's just such a huge difference, as we saw in the bill that they passed yesterday. It appears that they want to keep everybody unemployed, whereas President Trump and Republicans want to get people back to work. We want to help them. We want to give them a help up because they were shut down from the coronavirus. But it's such a clear difference, and people are seeing it. They don't want to live in an America where government controls every aspect of their life. And that's what you see in all these protests that are going on. They're sick of this. They want freedom. America is built on freedom, and that's what President Trump and Republicans stand for.
That's exactly right. And when you talk about full government control of everything, we're talking about socialism. And I think, to your point, the Democrats would like to keep things shut down, oddly enough, probably until, I don't know, November 4th, 2020, maybe the day after the election. It's odd how they're okay with allowing people to stand in a line to get in the grocery store and Home Depot, but for some reason they're saying people shouldn't stand in line to vote. I don't think so. We're going to get this country back up and running. I want to get back to the CARES Act. A key part of the CARES Act was the inclusion of the incredible Paycheck Protection Program, which I think you both referenced. This relief ensured that American workers could retain their jobs, receive their paychecks, and it helped our economy. It would help our economy reopen easier. We know at least 30 million jobs were supported or saved because of the Paycheck Protection Program. What kind of response have you seen directly from this program? How have workers and small business owners been positively impacted by this program in your state? Congresswoman Lesko, we just heard about your hair salon. Congressman Kelly, how's it going in Pennsylvania? What have you seen there?
Yeah, I think that we're seeing a lot of the same things that Debbie sees. You know, now, fortunately, you can go to your hair salon in Arizona. Where I'm from, Pennsylvania, that's still shut down. Half of Pennsylvania is still shut down by our governor, Governor Wolf. But I would just say this: I have people that come up to me and they'll say to me, "Listen, would you please tell the president, thank you for getting us through this really tough time." And I think Deb sees a lot of the same things. When you see the real people out there and not this fake media that's out there putting these stories out, it's the people. It's the hard-working American taxpayer. It's that guy and gal that are trying to raise their family that had nothing to do with this virus but are suffering the consequences of it. What this president has done, and there's no other nation in the world that could do what America has done, but under the leadership of this White House, this would not have happened other than Donald Trump being in office right now. And so when you see this and when you have people come up to you with tears in their eyes saying, because of that program, I still have income. Because of that program, I still have my business. But please, would you talk to this governor in Pennsylvania and tell him it's time to open up? We can accommodate whatever regulation, whatever guidelines are put in place.
Right.
We can take care of ourselves. We're big enough to take care of ourselves. I don't need to belong to any nanny state that tells me when to get up, when to go to bed, where I can shop, where I can't shop. If I need to get my hair cut, sorry, shut down. You look at across the board, all the things that have been taken away from everyday Americans. Now they're starting to push back on it. But again, I go back to at a time like this, and there's an old saying that during a crisis or a tragedy, change takes place. During this crisis, we're going to make sure it doesn't become a tragedy because of leadership out of the White House and President Trump. We will get through this crisis. It will not be a tragic era in America. It'll be a crisis that Americans face and Americans look down and Americans conquered. And it's all because of strong leadership from President Trump. I just feel so privileged to be able to work under his tutelage, under his guidelines, under his policies. I spent 8 years under the previous administration, and no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't get out from under what was going on there. Tax Cuts, Jobs Act, President Trump, getting that across the board with great support from the Republican Party. That changed the entire face of America. We once again became America, the beautiful America, the bountiful America, the successful, and not America that walked away from a challenge because they didn't have the guts to stand up to it. I'll stand with this president any day, anytime, anywhere to defeat this.
I love it. Absolutely right. Well, unfortunately, we all remember the Democrats' obstruction, as we know they like to do when it comes to this president, when the Paycheck Protection Program ran out of funding initially. The radical Democrats blocked the program from being immediately replenished. Afterwards, Nancy Pelosi praised her partisan Democrat colleagues for their shameless efforts that hurt millions and millions of Americans. Could you talk about how egregious this action was by the Democrats? I think it's astounding that this even happened, and how important it is that Republicans take back the House this November. Congresswoman Lesko, what are your thoughts?
Well, I've seen firsthand how Pelosi and the Democrat leadership will do anything and say anything to gain back power, including impeaching the President of the United States, which was totally terrible. But, you know, just like the people I told you about, Carmen, who has a business, Maria, who has a shop. Think of all of the millions of people out there that had to wait 2 weeks because Pelosi was so conceited, so political, that she wanted to get in her wish list of crazy, radical things in the bill that she postponed for 2 weeks these small business owners and self-employed people from getting the help they needed. And so unfortunately, I bet millions of companies had to close their door for good because they didn't have the cash flow. And she doesn't care. We have seen this over and over again, whether it's the Russia hoax, which we now see there was dirty cops in the FBI. It may go all the way up to President Obama himself. They were setting him up. They wanted to take him out. They couldn't stand it. They wanted power back. Then you had the whole impeachment thing. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. And when these Democrats say they criticize President Trump for the things he's doing to help America and to combat the coronavirus, what goal do they have? They were doing impeachment. That's all they cared about. While President Trump was working on banning travel from China to try to slow the spread. And Pelosi, if you remember, actually had a travel ban. She had the Ban Act. She was going to try to overturn President Trump's decision on that. These folks have such a radically different view of America's future than I have, or you have, or most Americans have. And I'm so thankful that you are speaking up about this, because the mainstream media, I don't even call them the mainstream media anymore. I call them like a Democrat arm of the Democrat Party media.
The marketing arm for the Democrats. You're 100% right.
Yeah, we need to change the term on that, I think, because they're so biased. They don't get out the words. I talked to people in the beauty salon yesterday. Had they heard about what happened with Flynn, about the FBI? No, they hadn't heard any of that stuff. And yet it's probably the most corrupt political action that has taken place in the history of the United States, trying to take out a president of the United States. So I'm thankful for you and other media sources that are trying to get out the truth. It's so important.
You know, I actually go out of my way in the mornings after I get my kids up to turn on what channels I think most Americans are probably tuning into, these morning shows. And I specifically have tuned in to see if they even reference the situation with Michael Flynn. Not a word on any of these networks. It is actually astounding. Congressman Kelly, when you think about how much obstruction we've seen from the Democrats, and we just heard a great wrap of a lot of it right there from Debbie, but when you think about what we could have seen happen in this country, if only for maybe people that wanted what was best for Americans working alongside the president in Congress, why is it so important that whenever people go vote on November 3rd, not only do they cast a vote for Donald Trump, but they cast a vote for Republicans to take back the House?
Yes, you know, Lara, thank you. And Deb, spot on. You know, that saying goes that power corrupts and total power corrupts totally. This is a quest on the Democrat Party for total power. They want to have the House, they want to have the Senate, and they want to have the White House. The only thing I would say to our American citizens, our fellow Americans, really watching the last 2 years, do you think that anything was done in your best interest? Or do you think that those almost 3 years and over $40 million spent on an impeachment that was phony from the start. The Russia collusion was phony from the start and headed up by guys like James Comey. And you look at those guys, say, really, these were the people running the FBI, people that we've held in the highest esteem in our lives. That top leadership has brought down a lot of Americans' respect. And I will tell you, it's not the field people. It was the top. It was rotten at the top. It's the same as what's going on right now. So whenever we look at what could happen this November, there's only one way to dig our way out of where we are. Had we won the majority and kept the majority in the last election in the House, you would have faced none of what's going on right now when it came to the impeachment. You would have faced none of this Russia collusion stuff. You would have faced none of this stuff that we're facing right now, which is a total distraction from keeping 36 million people unemployed. We want them back to work. Every single thing that we want is to get the American people back to work. 36 million Americans on the sidelines right now through no fault of their own, a president who's going to lead us out of this pandemic back into the race where we will again be the greatest country in the world. We are right now, but the track we were on was phenomenal. I would just say this election, and everybody says this every election, this may be the most important election in your life. This one really does show out when you put the wrong people in a position of power, what happens. So I'm just asking our American voters, please look at what's happened. Look who led you through the greatest resurrection of the American economy in our history. In our history, more Americans employed than ever before, making more money than ever before, and across the whole land. Had nothing to do with your color, had nothing to do with your gender, had nothing to do with where you worship, had nothing to do with anything other than being you were born in America or you became an American citizen, and you get to participate in the greatest country, and the greatest nation the world has ever known. So we've got to get out to vote. We've got to make sure that we keep Donald Trump in the White House. The other thing is we've got to get leadership back in the House. We need people like Debbie, and we need people like Senator Tillis, and the rest of us all there pulling as hard as we can in the same direction to make America great again, keep America great, and keep America strong. Lara, thanks so much for what you're doing, and God bless you. And please pass on to the president how much my constituents come to me and they tell me, Mike, tell the president we're praying for him. Tell the president not to let anybody get to him. Tell the president we're still behind him. I said, oh, you know what? The one thing, when I do see the president, you know what he says to me? Tell those people back in Pennsylvania that I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to keep fighting that fight for them. I'm going to keep leading the charge.
All right. Well, thank you both. We're going to take one final quick break. We'll be right back with more Team Trump Online.
Ready to go?
This is a crisis.
This is no time for Donald Trump's record of hysterical xenophobia.
Biden's son inked $1 billion deal with a subsidiary of the Bank of China.
Why are we getting nervous, man? China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man. They're not bad folks.
Since the outbreak, the Communist Party has been mobilizing overseas organizations to buy local supplies and send them to China.
The growth of China is overwhelmingly in our interest. What a beautiful history we wrote together. Banning all travel will not stop it.
The president is right. The travel restriction on China, as every public health official we've talked to said, bought the country time.
Hysterical xenophobia. Jeremiah. Xenophobia.
Joe.
I complimented him on dealing with China. I'm not going nuts.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Hey, Lara Trump here. The fake news media has spent years trying to stop President Trump with their lies and their witch hunts. But still, our movement is stronger than ever. We can't let the fake news media drown out our positive message about all of our incredible accomplishments. Make sure you're getting your news directly from the source by subscribing to the official Donald J. Trump podcast today. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play. All right, welcome back to Team Trump Online. I'm Lara Trump, and I am joined by Congressman Mike Kelly and Congresswoman Debbie Lesko. We just heard about the economic relief President Trump has delivered to Americans across the country. Now it's time for us to discuss a man who has done nothing but offer ineffective and irrelevant criticisms from his basement, Joe Biden. Biden recently made news for the wrong reasons, big shocker, when he further embraced the extreme policies of Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Since Joe Biden has secured the presumptive nomination, he has pivoted even farther left. We see it every single day. Congresswoman Lesko, can you discuss how radical Joe Biden and the Democrat Party have become?
You know, it just amazes me that the Democratic voters chose, Biden, Vice President Biden, because, I mean, he's really not good at speaking. He's having some kind of difficulty. And, I don't mean to make fun of him, but it's serious. I mean, this guy is running for the president of the United States.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of afraid that maybe they're going to choose somebody else because he's really not performing well. I mean, his videos that he's doing in the basement of wherever it is, his house or whatever. I mean, I can do videos better than that. And I don't have a budget I'm not running for president. I mean, I don't know what is going on, if they're self-destructing over there or what. But beyond that, if he is elected, our country is really in trouble. And you can see that from the Pelosi bill that was just passed, because Biden agrees with this stuff. They want to continue the unemployment into next year, that extra $600 a week that people get. But the problem with it is that when you combine that with the state's amount of money,
right,
many people are getting paid more to stay at home than to go to work. I've heard from multiple business owners who have said, in Arizona, we've opened up and they've called back their workers, and the workers are like, well, I'm making more sitting at home.
Yeah, why even bother going to work, Debbie? I mean, what's the point?
Exactly. And the mentality that my Democratic colleagues have is so different for the future of our country. They really believe that government can do better about controlling somebody's life. It's insane. It is totally opposite of what our founding fathers based our country on and how great we've become as a country. I mean, nothing in government is efficient. I mean, the VA has major problems. You go to the motor vehicle department, it's terrible. Why would you want more government controlling your life? And then in that bill, they want to give the money to people that are here illegally, again, prioritizing illegals, aliens over US citizens. They wanted to rewrite election law, make sure that they always win, basically, Democrats always win. This whole thing is just crazy. Oh, the craziest thing that they did in that bill, almost the craziest thing, is that they want to release prisoners just because they're 50 years old or older. It didn't say in there, that includes serial killers, rapists, insane. I can just go on and on. I'm just, if we're going to allow, that's why this election is so important.
Yeah, it's crazy because they're okay with releasing these prisoners, people that were convicted of crimes and were locked up. In this bill, they're okay with that, but we're going to lock up law-abiding citizens because they want to go to work. These people that have been arrested for trying to support their families, to put food on the table for their kids, it's unbelievable. And Joe Biden is the person they have right now trying to run for the head of their party. Joe Biden proudly declared in a recent interview that he set up a joint committee, if you can believe this, with Bernie Sanders to discuss the Green New Deal, and that AOC will be on his climate change panel. I mean, I can't think of what a bigger disaster. Congressman Kelly, how much of a disaster would the Green New Deal be specifically for jobs in your state of Pennsylvania? You named a bunch of them earlier.
Yeah, it'd be totally devastating. If you were to come into Pittsburgh and fly into the Pittsburgh airport, Lara, and I would pick you up, I would take you by a facility that's being built now. It's called a frac, where they do the fracking. Well, people say, what does that mean? It's a cracker plant. And that's where we take natural gas and they separate it into different products. The fact that we are the Saudi Arabia of natural gas right now, the fact that we have we are the leading producers of energy in the world, which means we don't have to depend on any bad actors in the world to supply us with our energy, as opposed to what had been taking place. Now, what does that mean? That means that puts us in a place where we can now go to our friends and people around the world who need help and say, listen, we'll help you. And we'll help you get through this because we can now supply the energy that you are now buying from bad actors. And so if you can do that, then I can walk away from it. But the key to all of this, though, comes down to leadership. It is leadership. You look at two men who are going to be going head to head this fall. You have a guy who's been in government for almost a half a century and accomplished absolutely nothing other than getting reelected and forgetting a lot of the places where he lived in the meantime. Now, I don't want to make fun of Vice President Biden. A lot of people say, well, he's a nice guy. I said, well, I understand. I understand. I'd rather vote for a guy who's been successful in his life, who's been knocked off his feet and gotten back up off the mat and won the challenge. President Trump and Joe Biden, there is absolutely no comparison. I think the president is being kind when he calls him Sleepy Joe. And again, I don't want, Sleepy doesn't begin to cover the way this man would be and who he would have as his running mate. And a lot of people were talking about, listen, what the Democrats are looking for now is a vice president, because they have absolutely no faith that if he were to be elected, Joe Biden would serve 4 years. So I tell my fellow Americans, go head to head, put them on the same plane. Look at what's been accomplished. You want to look at AOC and what she did to New York. She took thousands of jobs away from New York by a silly stance on a business that was going to come in and hire a lot of her constituents. She's been held up as the new voice of America. And I have nothing against her as a person. She is so out of touch with what hardworking Americans have to do every day to put food on the table, a roof over the head of their families, and a future in front of them. There's only one person in the race this fall that can continue to make America great. That's Donald Trump. And why do I say that? Just look at his resume, for crying out loud. Look at his resume and put anybody up against him that you want from that Democrat side. Said they've never been out of Washington. They've never been out of politics. They've never been out of putting their hand in taxpayers' pockets to pay for their crazy policies.
Yep.
Finally, America has a leader who looked them in the eye and said, you elect me and I am going to make America great again. I am going to bring us back to where we were. I'm going to strengthen our military. I'm going to take care of our veterans. I'm going to protect our manufacturers. I'm going to protect our steel mills. I'm going to protect our fossil fuel producers. I'm going to protect millions upon millions of American jobs. And I'm going to get more people back to work. And when that happens and we have successful businesses and we have working people, the funds and every single penny is furnished by a hard-working American taxpayer. It has gone in to rebuild our Social Security. That's where the funds come from, people. It's all wage taxes. So when you look at that, you want to put these two people side by side? It is a shame to have to do that to an older person like Joe Biden. He shouldn't have to even look across the table and say, that's my opposition. I can't possibly do it. If you don't mind, I'm just going to stay in the basement and I'll continue to babble and I'll forget about what I said the day before and I'll forget about my 40-some years of doing nothing and I'll try to portray myself as a really strong leader. I know who the leader is. America knows who the leader is. And I got to tell you, this November, people from Western Pennsylvania that I see, and they're still walking around with their Make America Great hats on again, and they got Trump signs painted on the side of their barns, of their barns. That's who this president is. So, look, it all depends on who turns out. And I know that. We've got to get our voters excited. And the people that put this president across the finish line the last time, a lot of them were first-time voters who never before had any faith in any politician that got up and tried to give some kind of a speech at very poorly attended rallies. This president brings them out by the tens and 20s and 30s of thousands, people standing in line in pouring down rain. I've been there with them to get in to see this president. And when they couldn't get in, they stayed outside. And just to see and hear on a big screen that was transfixed outside, this is the kind of electric that this president brings in and pumps into this society. Western Pennsylvania knows a winner when they see it. We're the home of the Pirates. We're the home of the Penguins. We're home of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll tell you what, we know a winner when we see it. We know who we want to back, and we know who needs to have our backing this November. We've all got to turn out. We've got to turn out strong, and we've got to turn out long. the only way to get this country back on track is to keep President Trump in office. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate serving with Debbie Lesko. Are you kidding me? I tell you what, I tell them every day, you know what? Put in your mouthpiece, pull on your helmet, tighten your chin strap, and get ready, babe. We're coming after you.
I love it. I love all the sports references, by the way. We could have a sports show on this. You know what? But the American people, I think, are very smart. And although the media, the fake news media, Debbie, we were talking about it a few minutes ago, although they've done everything, every step of the way to fight against this president, you still see those lines of people coming out to wait in the rain, in the snow, in the heat for this president. The American people are smart, but we are not taking anything for granted at the campaign. We are fighting every single day until November 3rd because this is the most important election, at least in my lifetime. Thank God we have Donald Trump in the White House right now. But let's be honest, if Joe Biden for a second became our president, don't think that he would be running this country. The Democrat establishment who chose him as the candidate, I believe, for the Democrats would be running this country. Whoever it is that they choose as his vice president running mate would be running this country, not Joe Biden. Because, I mean, if we're being honest, Joe Biden doesn't really understand what's going on most of the time, I don't think. But it's up to us, I think, to talk to people all across this country and make them aware of what's at stake. And when we're looking specifically right now, Debbie, you were just talking about this, there may be no better example of the Democratic Party's radicalism than their new $3 trillion coronavirus legislation. The 1,800-page bill is a Democrat wish list of left-wing policies and completely unrelated spending that has nothing to do with the coronavirus. So I want to ask both of you to talk about the absurdity of this bill and the fact that at a time like this, when the American people are looking to the leaders we have in this country for help, that the Democrats would try and pull a stunt like this and put all of this nonsensical, unrelated stuff in a bill like this. Congresswoman Lesko, anything else you want to say about that bill?
Well, it was a terrible bill. I mean, like I said, it continues unemployment. They want people to be unemployed because it continues the unemployment payments so that people get paid more sitting at home than they do working. It also gave extra money new money to illegal aliens. Again, they continue to prioritize illegal aliens over U.S. citizens.
Right.
I mean, the thing, and then releasing prisoners just because they're 50 years old or older because they're afraid they might catch coronavirus. That's insanity. There are dangerous people in prisons. We saw that, I think, in California, where they're releasing, these Democrats are releasing prisoners. They went out and killed somebody.
Right.
I mean, I'm at a point where I don't even understand them. And then this Green New Deal stuff where AOC herself said she wants to get rid of airplanes. She thinks that it's bad that cows fart. I mean, this is insane. I mean, we're laughing at it, but they're serious about this stuff.
Yeah, no, you're right. These people, nuts. They really want this implemented in our country. And I get that it feels good to say, oh, we're going to stop all fossil fuel use because, you know, you've been convinced of climate change, whatever your opinion is of that. But you have to think about the ramifications of these things. And Congressman Kelly, to do something at a time like this, at a critical time in our country, again, when people are looking to our leaders for help and for hope, to try and put this kind of stuff in a bill that is supposed to be helping the American people get through this. I mean, I can't think of anything that is more obvious as a voter out there as to what the Democrats really care about. It's not you. They care about implementing their policies.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You know, everybody's using this term now, and I've watched so many times on the TV, people might say, hey, we're all in this together. We're all in this together. Let me tell you one thing that we weren't all in this together on, and that was this bill that the Speaker of the House brought out and ran before us on Friday, called it the HEROES Act, failed to say, look, we didn't have any debate on this. We didn't have one member of the Republican Party at the table talking about the policies that we were advocating in this bill. This bill was an exercise on the Speaker's part to somehow make that wild left side of her party feel pretty good, bringing up things that she knows herself you can't accomplish it. She knows herself. While she may get it through the House because they have the majority, it's never going to go anywhere. And then at the same time saying we're all in this together, but we didn't allow any of you to help us develop this. And the same thing happened in the last, and you referenced it. Why would you hold up the Paycheck Protection Plan? Because you wanted to get some radical ideas. And we said, no, we're going to stick to the plan here. We're going to try and help those that need help the most and make sure we backfill some of the programs that have run out of cash. And that's what we should be looking for. We want to get 36 million people back to work. So let's put in policies that do that, not some radical far left agenda. And then to accuse Leader McConnell in the Senate, well, he's wrong. All he said was, let's pump the brakes. Any person, whether they're running a business, running a household, takes a look at when they borrow money. They borrow it when they need to. They don't borrow it foolishly, and they don't spend it foolishly. They say, you know what? Okay, let's make sure we take care of this for the kids. Let's make sure we take care of this for the churches and the schools. And if we have a little bit left over, then we'll put someplace else. But let's make sure that the money that's going in, and this is all taxpayer money, let's make sure that everything that's going in is being used to the best of its ability. And I'll tell you what, I was just so disappointed on Friday to see what happened. And a lot of our colleagues, and Deb has the same thing. I have people on the other side that they wouldn't have voted for this, except they were like, well, it's almost like we've got to, but it'll never get through the Senate. I said, you know what? The worst thing you can ever go is back home and tell your constituents who place their trust and faith in you that you're going to act in their best interest is that, well, see, in order for me to get reelected, I had to kind of play this game.
Yep.
And that's why I go back to the President of the United States. The President of the United States, here's the game. Here's the game. We don't take a day off. We don't take a play off. We run every play. It's like the last play we ever run. And we live every day like it's the last day we'll ever have. And the other thing is, we don't just play through the whistle. We play through the echo of the whistle. We will play until we get to the point we need to get to, and we save this American economy, and we get Americans back to work again, and we continue to make America great. I'm just so proud and so thankful to be able to serve with Debbie Lesko and this president. That it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. My wife and my kids, I have 10 grandchildren, and all they ever say is, Grandpa, we love President Trump. Grandpa, we love President Trump. I said, hey, don't forget about Grandpa, okay?
Grandpa's doing some good things too.
I mean, this has been a privilege. This is a challenge for us all. But I want to say it the way it should be said, and that is really at this point, there's no Republicans, there's no Democrats, there's just Americans. And if we're going to use that phrase, that we're all in this together, then you know what? Actions speak louder than words. Mrs. Speaker, if you really wanted to help Americans, don't waste their time and their money on a bill that you knew was never going anywhere. All you were doing was to placate your far left. And I can't understand why she would waste that time and waste that energy on what? On what? A bill, 1,850 some pages, $3 trillion of hard-working American cash in that, and say, this is the best we can do. If that's the best you can do, please don't do any more. Sit on the sidelines. We'll craft a bill that actually does get people back to work, that actually does make the economy healthy again, and actually does work in the best interest of all Americans and not some far left agenda.
Well, maybe we should give her a little more time come November 4th to eat some more of her ice cream and put somebody else in her spot. Just a thought that might help everybody. I want to get any final thoughts that you guys have before we sign off tonight. Congresswoman, I'll start with you.
Well, I'm just so honored to serve in the United States Congress, and I've been so honored to be invited on Air Force One when President Trump came to Arizona to tour a Honeywell plant and N95s and to be with them in meetings. I mean, he is doing a great job for America. And now that the economy needs to get back up and running again, I mean, he's the only logical choice. I mean, he's done it before and he'll do it again. And that's why I think it's so important for the people that are watching this to understand how they can make a difference. Just like I talked to the ladies, the hairdressers, yesterday when I was getting my hair done, and I talked to them about different things and what was in the bill. I talked to some ladies in the bathroom at the airport, and I said, do you know what was in that Democrat bill? They want to continue to do this. And they were just shocked. They were horrified. They did not realize what was in it. So each one of us and each one of the people that are watching this, they can make a difference each and every way, whether it's subtle by just talking to somebody saying, hey, do you know what's in this? Or putting out a yard sign in their front yard. I happen to have a Trump 2020 flag flying in my front yard. Part of it is because we have some Democrat neighbors, and I have to tell you, my husband gets a kick out of it, you know. But I had some construction truck come by my house, beeping, honking, Trump 2020.
Love
People
it.
are revved up. We need to get the word out, and we, each one of us, can make a difference in saving our country, because that's what this is about. It's about saving our nation, because the Democrats, Joe Biden, are so radical, they will ruin the future of our nation.
That's right. All right, Congressman, any thoughts from you before we close?
Just real short, and you said about sports analogies.
Yeah.
One thing that every team does when they go into battle against another team, they look at the game films or the game tapes. They look at who their opponents are. They also look at films on themselves to see where's our strengths, where's our weaknesses. But you look at your opponent and you say, okay, let's break it down and let's see what they've done. Well, I would just suggest to anybody who has the ability to sit down and think for a little bit, look at 3+ years of the Trump administration and the game films on that, and the fact that we won the Super Bowl under this administration and this president's leadership. Then switch over and get 47 or almost 50 years of, I'm going to say, game films for the Dems. I wouldn't say especially for Vice President Biden. It would certainly never be a highlight film.
No.
It would be you could take a look at, this is not the way you want to operate. When you watch the Obama-Biden administration and what happened to our country, not only how we continue to lose jobs, but how we lost face around the world. This idea that we'll lead from behind, which no one understood. And then you look at 3+ years of the Trump administration, a candidate who told the American people, elect me and I'll make America great again. With your help. He never said just me. He said, we will make America great again. This is a president who told people what he'd do. Didn't sound like any other of those other 16 or 17 candidates up there on the stage that wanted to be the Republican candidate. He was so different from them and so refreshing from them. And you look and say, he made promises to the American people. Look at the checklist. Everything he said he would do, he did, in spite of, by the way, the total backing that he should have got. And I mean this sincerely. When he was running for the president, there was nothing that was more disappointing to me than not seeing all our Republican leadership come out and strongly endorse a candidate who was so fresh, who was so different, who was so not Washington. And that's why they couldn't come out. They were so much of that old style. This is a man who's led from the very beginning, told you what he'd do, and then did it. And there's an old saying about character. You know, you say what you mean, and you mean what you say. This is a president who's done that. All I would tell anybody: look at the game films, break them down, and you tell me which team you want to play for, and you tell me which team you want to root for, and you tell me which team brought the Super Bowl trophy back to your home and to your family and to your shops and to your manufacturers and to your steel makers, every place across the board. It's all been under the strong leadership of Donald Trump. So break down the game films, folks. It's easy to see. There's no highlight films coming out of the D side, believe me. They're lowlights. They're all lowlights. There's no highlights. 3.5 years of Trump leadership have given us the greatest country we've ever had in our history. So, Lara, thanks so much. Deb, I can't wait to see you. I guess we're going to go back to Washington sometime at the end of May.
Sometime soon.
We'll continue to do what's in the best interest of every single person we represent. I don't care if they're an R or a D. It's about we. We have got to get back in touch with what's going on. So no R's, no D's, just we's. And the we's I'm talking about, the only color I see with them is red, white, and blue. And that's who we are. We are always going to be that country. We are always going to be that nation. We are always going to be the greatest hope on the face of the earth.
I feel like I should go play a football game right now. And speaking of, I know that you're a Notre Dame fan. My dad played at Purdue. So we'll have to agree to disagree. We can agree on almost everything except that. But Congressman Kelly, Congresswoman Lesko, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We really appreciate it. And thank you for fighting for this country and standing behind this president as well.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. You're doing the same thing, Lara. We just got to keep going. Deb and I aren't going to quit, and there's nobody in our conference that's going to quit.
That's what we love. All right. Thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Deb. Bye, Lara.
Bye. Bye, Mike.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much. The stakes could not be any higher this November in our fight to keep America great. We need as many patriots as possible to help us defeat Joe Biden and the radical Democrats. If you'd like to get involved with Team Trump, go to DonaldJTrump.com or download the official Trump 2020 app from the App Store on your iPhone or from the Google Play Store on Android. I want to thank all of our special guests, Senator Tom Tillis, Congressman Mike Kelly, and Congresswoman Debbie Lesko for joining us tonight. And a huge thank you to all our amazing supporters at home for tuning in. We'll see you all next time as we continue to fight to re-elect President Donald J. Trump. Have a great night.